GDM General, and I take my manager as marketing.
So, Mr. Bansal, it's honestly inspiring to see how your journey connects so many worlds, from consulting and innovation to shaping India's global business strategy. What really stands out is how your insights go beyond boardrooms. You have written about everything from supply chain resilience and to India's semiconductor ambitions. I would love to dive into that side of your experience since today the global lessons, the leadership philosophies, and the vision you see for India's next big leap.
Sure. Thank you so much first, Aditi and Ayush, for your time, and Achha ma'am for your support as well. And very warm welcome to everyone for this session. I hope this is useful to you as you listen to me and the conversation that we have here. So for just to kind of start, I think global supply chain or trade is something which is very significant impact, on all of us. And of course, till the time we were not trading with overseas, organizations like post-independence, we had this initial time, you can say 20-30 years, where we had a very, you would say, averse mindset, to trade with overseas countries around it, given the fact that we had the challenges with the British as they kind of started with trade and then, kind of overtook our country around it. But as you can see, post-liberalization, right, and which was necessitated because of the fact that, no country can survive on its own. They definitely need support and also like procurement of various types of materials and services from other countries around it, because that is what makes the supply chain efficient, and the products and services being available at one is the higher availability, and also get it done at a particular cost level as well there, which is more affordable and also something which is more progressive in that sense there. So post 1991, as we saw, there's been a huge influx of materials, services, as well as integration with global value chains as it happened, for us there. And today, I mean, of course, we're not the biggest exporter. I mean, of course, we are still a marginal exporter, on it in the global value chain. But there is a growing trend that we've seen, especially in the last 5 years. There has been a very strong increase in the trade, global trade. From an India perspective, our exports, our merchandise exports, and of course our service exports, as you're aware, with the the tech industry earlier, and now with the global captive centers, which are popularly known as GCCs. So we have gone up to almost a $700 billion plus, with both the merchandise and services coming together. And the government's aim is to kind of say that get to 1 trillion for merchandise exports and 1 trillion for services as well. So total target is 2 trillion by 2030, and we are in 2025 with 700 and growing around it. So from, if you look at it from an India perspective, because you specifically asked from the perspective on that, so I think the last 10 years, particularly have just been phenomenal in terms of what has been, let's say, added. When you look at the highway capacity, almost 60% plus has got added. When you look at the ports, we have doubled the port capacity in India, right, from 871 million tons to almost 1600 plus million tons around it. So there's been a tremendous increase in the port capacity, and also the fact that the turnaround times at the port, so when a ship lands and ship goes back, with the loaded goods, the turnaround time has got reduced, and it's now getting more comparable to global standards as well there. Earlier it used to take a very long time, so you may have a capacity at the port, but if it is taking much longer to churn, then you're not able to utilize or sweat that asset effectively there, which is what the the government's kind of done, the private players have done around it. So a lot of that push is essentially helping us to kind of get more integrated around it. And I mean, all of us are here, I think, just taking a very simple example, I mean, each of us, if not all, majority of us, would be users of Amazon and Flipkart and, so many other applications around it. The amount of integration that we've seen, or the growth that we've seen, from e-commerce penetration used to be almost 2% about 10, 20 years back. Now it's like, significantly higher at this point in time. And so some of these things are the one which, are changing the way we behave, we work, and also we consume things as well there. And recently, as few years back, when the quick commerce started and last 2 years it's been phenomenal. There I just did a quick post on Diwali as well. On the fact that on simple gifting. Now you can get a gift in 8 minutes delivered to your home, and you can, if there's something's going to happen, you can just get it finished off, right, as well. Not that everything is available, but slowly and slowly so many things are getting made available in that, right? So well, all of these will come with some challenges and problems as well, but I think when you look at the whole India story, we have a perspective on saying that there's a lot of consumer demand which is getting fulfilled now with quick commerce, with one-day deliveries, and with the lot of variety and supply available. You have a lot of requirement on industrial side of it, which is also getting fulfilled with the examples that I took on the port capacity getting increased in that sense around it, and the highways getting done. So movement of trucks, movement of goods has become much more easier, faster, more transparent, also more connected. In that sense. Getting really pushed for the digital infrastructure that the government's got put up and the country's kind of built up as well on it. And when you look at the perspective on the services side as well, that also requires this digital backbone, which is also getting done through the mechanisms that have been set up there in that. So when you look at the India's the expansion in the economy, as we are now aiming towards a 7 trillion, and then of course to a developed nation status as well. Supply chain management is one of the most crucial elements which will help us in that GDP growth, at least by a few percentage points every year, if that is something which is kind of get managed well there.
Mr. Bansal, you have had such a dynamic career across consulting and business strategy. What first drew you into this field?
Interesting question there in that. So will not say that I had a very definite plan or understanding like where I wanted to land up, if I may use that word around it. But I think I have loved travel, still do. I love meeting people, making interactions, and also learning from them, learning new things as well. Problem solving comes very naturally. Also taking action or initiative, something which has been a kind of a normal trait, if I may say that. But if you say that that was I fully aware at that point in time that what all the consulting would entail and how it will happen around it, not so much. It was, I would say that there were a few friends who were applying to various requirements and positions around it, so I happened to have some good friends who were applying to one of the big four firms as well, on it, and I did apply along with them. I loved the interview process, enjoyed it actually, and learned from that interview process as well. And the conversation with the partner at that point in time was the one which was quite enriching for me, right? Some things were very direct, some things were very, I would say, thought-provoking, some things were challenging in that conversation also. And, so that actually cemented my thought process that I definitely want to work with this organization or similar organization around it. And at that point in time, of course, my thoughts were to, say that, how can I absorb maximum around that, and that in a way has helped going forward as well. Since we are at this point, I think something which I've always believed and I always said and did personally myself as well was the fact that I had kept a very clear 5-year period in my mind to say that 5 years is just for absorption, which I say like that you should be like a sponge, there, keep absorbing whatever you kind of hear, discuss. If you don't understand anything, keep noting down, keep asking questions. Even people sometimes may get a little upset about it, but so you choose your time, but do get the answers around it. But but after 5 years is the one when you can when you squeeze the sponge, that's where the actual juice and real material comes out of it there. Because consulting is in some way it's competitive, very very harsh. And it's also brutal in the sense that you get branded very quickly, if you're not doing that well on something around it, or so there are second and third chances, you can say, but it gets difficult around it, to do that. So somewhere I think keeping that attitude of learning and just kind of ensuring that you have the answers available, because it's like this, that first year you are junior, second year you become senior, somebody else has come as well, and he may be brighter than you, sharper than you. So if you can't answer their questions, there'll be a problem in that sense, in their mind. So that in a way kind of helped me in some ways to build the career as kind of move forward as well. Then.
That's wonderful, sir. As you said that the failure is not to be punished but learned from. So before going to the main conversation, what's something that is beyond your work inspire you and excite you the most?
Just repeat that question, please.
Beyond your work, outside from your work, what's something that is excite you and inspire you?
So I think personally, if you look at it, I think for me, in some way, I'm pursuing excellence in majority of the areas and parts of my work, part of it. So outside of that, when I'm in a personal zone as well, so if somebody is excelling in sports, somebody is excelling in let's say art kind of work as well, so some great thing that is happening always kind of keeps you that excitement there, because there is nothing happens by chance, so there's a lot of work, a lot of effort somebody is put in that, so and if there is some, let's say, glimpse into their journey, like that somebody's done. So I love documentaries significantly more than the things. I love movies as well, all kinds of genres as well on that. But there is a conscious time that I spent like today as well, let's say almost hour and a half in a day on new learning there in that, so that may come through book, that may come through YouTube or Discovery Channel or whatever there in that part. But I think that's something which is very critical. As a consultant, your knowledge can get obsolete very quickly, there. So you need to be ahead, and so depth is very critical, and that is where that is something that I think I've kind of prioritized. And I think inspiration is all around us. Just as that you have to just look at things. Nature is such a big inspiration on so many things around it, and there are so many leaders. I would not say that I've kind of followed or idolized any one particular, whether in the firm or outside around it there, but I have always looked at some of the attributes that people have, and can I try and build some of that in me. I will not be saying that okay, I've got 100% of what the other person is doing. There are different circumstances there, but what is that an attribute that somebody has, or let's say a weakness that I have, can I kind of try and overcome that. So how do people react in a particular situation is something that teaches you a lot there. So that I personally try to observe and grasp, and then try and change my perspective as well.
Sir, across your 28 years in consulting and strategy, you have worked through multiple waves of disruption. What's one professional challenge that shaped your leadership philosophy more than any success story ever?
So interesting. Many have happened, many have shaped various thoughts and thinking. One, if I may say, like the 2010, I decided to relocate to Hyderabad to set up a service line within the firm, which was not present over there, right, in that office, a very small office. Delhi office is fairly large, or Delhi Gurgaon, Delhi NCR office is a very, very large office, there. And compared to that, like, so just to give you an example, it's like 5% or 8% of, the Delhi office, there. And I kind of decided personally myself as well to say that I want to go and relocate there and set up that service line over there from zero, with 0%. I'm the only one who's kind of going there and doing that. So that is something which I wanted to challenge myself, to say that I was doing a lot of business development in Delhi and getting clients, sourcing client delivery as well, but I was unsure whether I can do it in another region and build it from start. And I 100% knew that if I do that successfully, then A, it gives me that confidence and comfort. B, it stamps me completely within the firm. So nobody else has done that. So I did pick up and I had my conversation with my reporting partner at that time, and then we got that done as well. He asked me 3-4 times, why not Chandigarh? There. I said Chandigarh is too close. I'll just keep coming back to Delhi. I may not, let's say, focus that deep around it. So I want to go to another thing there in that. And I have a family with 2 daughters, there in that sense. One daughter was there at the time. And so I relocated, and that was a Telangana time. there, right? When there was separation, state was happening. The first day I land up, there was a 2-day bandh declared. No fuel, nothing, nothing is moving. No grocery as well, or a very limited, big time curfew happening around it. So I said, what kind of a mess have I landed myself into? And that continued for 3-4 months. It was a very, very heightened state of things. And since it's been some time, that's why I can share that there were a few attempts to do something in Hyderabad earlier, but all of them had not succeeded by the firm, which I was not aware, and neither I inquired as well. Which is partially is good. So then I kind of developed a strategy of acquiring a strategic client there, and that we ended up getting 3-4 of them eventually. But a short answer after this long-winded thing would be that was at the background that I was setting, that a lot of complexity, starting from zero, hiring from 0% to building up the team there, very different culture, work ethics different around client and us around it there. Delhi, we are very different in certain sense around it there, in terms of approach to business development and delivery also. And so it was very humbling experience and very enriching experience there in that. And also the success I had planned for 2 years came in 1 year, with the extreme amount of push, because I was all alone. So in fact, you can say almost 17 hours, 18 hours were devoted entirely to kind of get that up and running. But it did happen in a very good way, and it kind of created a big success in that region for that purposes around it. Got me widely noticed, within the practice and the above leadership as well. And more than that, I would say the experience which I got just stayed with me in a way, right? I mean, nobody else went through that grind, on it. And I had a back injury at that point in time, just in the first month of, landing in Hyderabad and, the thing around it. So that kind of a number of pressures in some sense around it, but a very different experience, and a very, very fulfilling. And that gave me absolutely super confidence, I must say, in business development side of it, because I knew that if I can carve out and if I can be successful in a completely uncharted territory and where people have not been succeeding in adverse situations, circumstances, I was confident that we can do work. Now, I'm not saying 100% everywhere, but I was quite confident that I'll figure out something and something good will happen later as well. Then I moved back to Delhi there and that. So I would say that one experience was very good of taking that risk and going and getting completely out of the comfort zone and exposing yourself. Because if I would have failed, then it could have scarred me as well, or could have created a very negative image within the organization as well. But I think taking a chance was a very good thing that I did.
That's really a good answer. To start a business from the scratch, it's literally amazing. And as we are students, we all want to start a business. So as I see that you are working with many leaders, so what are the advice or quality that stay on you and stuck with you that you have pursued in all the life?
Okay, interesting. Again, quite a when you say qualities that have stayed with me, I think 4 or 5, if I may say, and there not be like a single person who's kind of imbibed that. So I think one quality which most of you see and gets kind of maybe presented much more is of course quite visible on saying that the leader has a drive or a vision to kind of get somewhere. I think I happened to work and had good exposure on some of the people who had a very good clarity of where they want to get there. Also, they had a lot of urgency they could attach to it as well, because I don't think you may have the best vision, but if you don't have urgency around it and also the team and means around it, you can get there. So I think that was something which was I've noticed quite closely client-wise and internal in the firm as well, that the leader has to clearly set out what are we trying to do, where are we trying to get, and in what time, and why that is so urgent and why it's so important, and what will it make eventually happen for all of us there in that. So I think that is very critical there in that. Second thing which is quite linked to this is also on the pride part of it there, that are we very proud to do what we're trying to do eventually. Money is of course that will come on the sides of it there, but money cannot be the sole driver on it there. I think the pride of being aligned, which kind of alludes to what I initially said on excellence, the pride of doing something, carving something out, which will be used by people or experienced by people, and they will have a wow factor to it, right? Is something which is very critical, for success on a longer run basis around it, sustainable basis around it, because vision gets you the clarity, but pride then binds you entirely in a way to say that we all are fulfilling, on our success around it. I think the third element, which and kind of you can say that it came from home initially, and then of course which you have seen with some leaders. I would not say a variety of leaders, very few, I would say, although majority do it in different points in time, but there are some people I have seen that humility there in that. I think it's a very, very understated virtue. Many times we dismiss a lot of people, and we expect people to be humble, but when it comes to working with somebody who's humble, we sometimes try and just ignore a lot of the demands and requirements that he or she may pose on us around it. But the humble people with humility is something which is like very, very visible, right? It doesn't need any kind of a loud thing to happen there. It just gets noticed in few interactions around it. And I must say that now we've got like Satya Nadella, when he took over Microsoft, there were so many things spoken about it in different ways, written in terms of what kind of a organization he's joining in, the culture that it has, and how he's how he will be actually performing around it. And I mean, all of us are here. I mean, Microsoft done extremely well. The kind of culture that he set up in that organization, there are books written as well. So it's not that I'm trying to share something which is just off the cuff kind of a thing. I mean, there is proof of that. But general perspective, it comes with that we see leaders as very aggressive, pushy, sometimes demanding. They have to be demanding, because if the results don't come, no one succeeds. And like I say this in our setup as well, that we have to do whatever we have to do, but we have to finally get the client delivery done in the best way. Once the client delivery happens in the best way, then there are learnings, right? Then we can actually share the success with everyone in the team, as well as shield some people as well. If there's some during the delivery, some issue happened with somebody and somebody else had to cover it up. If you succeed, then you can actually do a lot of things. Otherwise, people get into this self-reflection in a difficult manner, once you don't succeed around it there. So I think success is extremely critical, that results have to come. There could be times, where you can't get the best result or whatever there in that, but did we try our best to get there? And that is what I've seen with leaders as well, to say that the last thing in this area would be like, saying that some leaders give you that comfort of, that you can fail, right? And it's not a deal breaker, kind of a situation. I think that is a very strong leadership. Once we have that kind of a comfort developed on it, and you'll see that the innovation happens the maximum in those companies where there is an environment which is kind of designed to support people, especially if they can fail and then build it again there, right? Because and I would say that I've not experienced it personally, but I've read and understood and heard in some different speakers speaking about it as well, that some companies actually celebrate failure, right? Because and I think that's a very good way, because now what is it that we should not do again, right? So there are 20 more ways to get to success.
Well, sir, you have spoken often about helping people realize their true potential. What's one trait you think distinguish professionals like us who are pursuing professional degrees, who grow with change, from those who get overwhelmed by it?
Just sorry for repeating the part then.
One trait that you think distinguish professionals who grow with change from those who get overwhelmed with it.
So I think human body in its normal sense want to avoid let's say change, right? I mean, we are kind of geared in a way to not accept change, because that means some effort, some push. And the way the human body is designed, we want to conserve energy, to survive, there from whatever biological things, the way the God designed us in some sense around it. So that's the natural state, for all of us around it, there. And what better example than what you see when you and I struggle with it as well. But the fact that if you have to hit the gym, you have to hit the gym. Change will only happen when you see that happening there, and that will take some time also to really start making the difference. When you see the difference, you start getting excellent about it, and you want to do more and more of that. Again, there could be a drop comes, and again then you have a problem of the inertia to go back and do it again there as well, right? So business situation is not different in that sense around it. The people that we go to, like in different organizations as well, or even professionals, like you said, that. So when we onboard people, right? So maybe the first 3 months, as I call it, you are the most open. You have a lot of ideas. You're questioning things as well, everything, and I kind of try that I am able to speak to that person. If he's important to me, then I will speak to him more often. But otherwise, even juniors as well, to say that, get some ideas and thoughts to say how can you change things as you're experiencing now. I think as people go a little older in the system, there, then they start into the mindset कि ये ऐसे ही होता है. This is how we will go about it. This is the only way. They are told also like that sometimes around it. But I think the quality if somebody has, which I'll now come to that quality part, is basically that ownership, right? So if you have ownership, you have to have ownership of yourself. You have to have the ownership of your output. You have to have the ownership of the client that you're working with. You have to have the ownership of the organization that you are attached to as well, right? You may be an employee, you may be a temporary trainee, whichever case could be around it. But if you feel that you are in that ownership mindset, that I own my actions on it, your conversations become very different there. And I can give you a very practical perspective on this. There, I come from a business family. I decided not to join the business. I decided to pursue, employment, just like my father had done. Again, he's my role model, so there's a lot of learnings that I've got from him. And he initially started like that, and I said, this is how I want to go about it. And I can tell you, my thought process as an employee was never there. It was always about that, how is my employer getting affected with what am I doing and what am I not doing right there. So during the articleship as well, or training period, the rigorous amount of effort that I put in, and the innovation in a way on the work practices and the thought processes, also not wanting to do, like you would say, I'm very was focused on it, that I didn't want to do mechanical work. So if I've learned something, I don't want to repeat that. If I'm now don't learning anything about it there, right, new around it. It continues till today as well. But that time also it was pretty much clear in my mind. So I really pushed my seniors to give me new things around it. Sometimes it ended that I was much more in office than others were. My batch initially did not like a lot of things as well, because it created certain pressures on them as well, on some of the work practices, you can call it there and that. But the philosophy that was running was that ownership mindset there and that. And I think that allowed me to get noticed, work well, also understand a lot many things more deeper than just understanding the pieces of it there and that. So that chain or the dots get connected much better if you have that ownership mindset around it. And one is not saying that you need to have that like a slave driving mindset, right, that you need to work much more hours. I've done that, but I'm not subscribing to that, to say that you have to do that extra effort all the time. But thinking part, the mindset is something which I would say is very critical. And if you are taking ownership of your career, if you are taking ownership of where you want to land up eventually, you mean that you will dig much more about it before you jump in. And once you've jumped in, you do all effort to make it successful as well there and that. So that's something which I would subscribe to.
So, as my the next question is that how important is risk management integration in designing digital supply chain frameworks for the future?
So that's a very good question, because what is really happening is that the when we had like the paper-based supply chain, right? Lot of information, lot of papers were floating around, and we had let's say a responsibility for risk management as a separate department. So we had tasked risk department to say that you will take care of risk, as it happens around it, and the transaction speed was slow at that point in time. Individual transactions were going very slow. There. Let me take you again to a very quick example, on this, so that is better understood. So let's say, taking back the example of an Amazon or a Swiggy, or now the quick commerce Instamart, let's say, or Blinkit, right? All of us are experiencing it there. So let's say when the Blinkit was not there, your order was arriving one day later, or 7 days, also 5 days as well, right? So a risk management department of a Blinkit, let's say, just for example's sake only, I'm not taking it from a company perspective, but Blinkit more from this understanding. So a department of risk within Blinkit had the opportunity of 5 days, let's say, to verify that information, find out whether it's a genuine sale, transaction, whatever, and they had that time available to do that, and they could find out issues and errors with that perspective and share it and say that we don't agree with this, and the KYC has not happened, this is the problem here, payment has not come through, whatever different things around it, and share it back. Today they have 8 minutes, right, to do that. The order will arrive at your place, if that is something which is to be done there. So what that does is that the risk management or risk activity is not a responsibility of the risk department. It has got, risk management has got democratized, and it has now moved to the function itself. So today, if I'm the in charge, for, let's say, the supply chain, or the product delivery part of it in a Blinkit, I will have to ensure that, since I'm doing, maybe just for example's sake only, if I'm doing 1,000 orders in the day, every one of those orders goes through a certified risk management process of saying that I'm ensuring that I've got the payment, I'm ensuring that I got the address right, I'm ensuring the product which was asked is what I have in store, it is not expired, it's not this kind of a thing. I'm also ensuring that the delivery timeline, whatever SL has been agreed, that is getting done. So all of that risk is now getting managed by the function itself there. So risk management today is basically highly integrated, highly digitalized. Also, it's part of the process. It's no more as an independent activity there. Earlier, risk management was, like I said, was kind of a distant department who kind of comes in every 5 days, every quarter, every month, every year, and does few checks and discussions around it, comes back. So you were doing a lot of post-facto analysis there in that. Today, the transaction requires instant. So if you have to stop the transaction, it happens there and then, right? I mean, you've done a UPI, if let's say, somebody was managing a risk thing for UPI, I mean, there are, thousands and millions of transactions which are happening right on that. So it can never be that it can be something which is a post facto. And I'm not saying post facto analysis is not important, but post facto analysis is important for changes in the process, in the system itself there and that. But the transaction testing has to happen in a digitized manner, in a digitized world, as we are all living and experiencing around it. The other thing which has happened is that the risk management professionals also, they've had to adapt to this change, wherein they have to have the necessary skill sets, team build-up has changed, the mix of risk management teams is completely changed, because they cannot go with the previous set of people around it. So technology understanding, ability to apply yourself, understanding algorithms, how things work, all of this has become very natural, for people there in that. And if you look at it from clients' perspective or the companies are wanting outcome-based risk management. So take one quick example on it there. So if you were to do risk management for let's say a telecom operator, right? So earlier, and I've been in the telecom industry in the initial career from late 90s and then early 2000s. At that point in time, we used to go and do an audit after 3 months, 6 months kind of a thing, and come back with thousands of changes that are required in system and whatever they're in that part, right? 2000, and I'm don't have to go this thing there that it's happening now. 2009-10 only, we had so many products available because telecom industry is very digitized. So they were the front runners. Banks and telecom industry have been the front runners to adopt highest amount of technology because of regulation, because of the volume of transactions as well as the exposure that they have with the client base, right? So there it was all about saying that you started getting into contracts, where the client is saying that my entire, let's say, revenue that I'm earning, just for example, say, let's say is 1,000 crores. I need a 5% saving to come from you guys, either on cost or a 5% upsell, right? Wherein my revenue should go up on that. So what that has done is that risk management has itself become an outcome-based activity, which is a very, very different approach, than what, let's say, traditionally is being followed. And this is something which is now has evolved into power sector. It has moved into consumer sector, like a retail store. You're not saying that we will do a retail verification at the end of the month. It has to happen the same day, like a cash settlement happens in the bank. It's a similar process, where retail store also does today, like a shopper shop or somebody else in that world. So risk management has become very integrated. It has got digitalized. It has got very outcome oriented now.
Sir, what a wonderful example you gave about Blinkit. So my next question is, as a leader who has navigated both digital and infrastructural transformation, what leadership mindset is crucial for driving supply chain modernization? As myself, as a mechanical engineer, and I have a keen interest in supply chain management or operations management. So, like, what leadership mindset is crucial for driving supply chain?
So, in terms of supply chain, I think there are 3-4 things which will be very critical, and we do that for clients on a very regular basis around it. So, I think one is critical, that supply chain is not existing as in isolation, right? Supply chain is existing to serve the purpose, which are internal customers, which are the production people, which are the sales people, which are the finance, all the people around it. Eventually, the production people become the most important custodians or distribution people there in that, and eventually for the customers, right? So their supply chain is existing to serve that purpose. So the system does not have to be heavy, that it is most, let's say, advanced or digitized or everything, and it's not serving the customer eventually. Finally, you are existing to serve the customer. So having that as the core philosophy, and having that getting questioned every, let's say, periodic interval is, I think, very critical, so that you stay on the course, and you are able to answer well on that part, that that it is going to help the customer eventually. So that's something which is very important. The second thing is that to say that you will see that companies which are distinguished today compared to what they were in the past. So you will see that innovation in supply chain is a very critical part there. So as a leader or as a leadership team, to innovate faster and better and smarter and apply it quicker as well than competition has become the key advantage, in some sense around it. And you would find it in different industries, the way the things have happened. India's auto industry is a very big example of that. You look at, maybe just for the sake of repeating, I mean, Amazon is a completely outstanding example of, fact that they invested in airplanes, like air cargo, they used to do. They build their capacity to have their own planes, right? And all UPS and other people were doing, bringing it to a particular center and then distributing it. They decided a different hub model, there in that, right, for themselves on that. So understanding the customer was critical. UPS was okay with the, like the 1 day, 2 day delivery basically, and American consumers today also are very good with that, and they are comfortable. Indian consumers, we wanted 10 minutes now for everything there. So we are different, but the fact that, how they, made those capital investments, right? Because any kind of a supply chain project, if it's centered around the customer, if it is centered around speed, and it's centered around, like the accuracy part of it, would have to be supported by the full buy-in of the leadership team, and also a lot of investment on digital side of it there, to bring that transparency and also the ability to get that information to decide, there. So that capital expenditure on digital certain times will have to happen much in advance, right? So like I said, today you have to invest so that you can use in 2 years later, there. So that kind of a thinking, or sometime in very large hard assets as well, right there. So some of this is something which as a leadership team, one will have to have that mindset of, saying that, we are staying the course, we are doing what others are not doing, but we are understanding what we are wanting to finally get done. So we all are coming together to make that happen. And later on, the industry will follow through and make that, as a normal approach. And when the industry is making it a normal approach, we will have another approach, already in making, because you have to be on the treadmill, on a continuous basis. Where the treadmill speed is increasing, the incline is increasing every 2 years, every 3 years, kind of a thing, faster than what the competition is thinking about. And that's why we've got some real examples of companies which are not just good, but they're great in that sense.
That's really insightful answer, sir. So, as we see that you are working with the supply chain projects, so why supply chain digitalization is so important for India's growth today?
So, like partially what we're discussing, India is wanting to grow, from we are about $4.4 trillion, we want to get to 7 trillion very quickly. And then subsequently as well, we've got a big journey ahead. All of that would happen when the GDP of the country grows, right, in this sense. And GDP is nothing but consumption of goods and services that's happening, or the production and consumption around it. So many more times goods will have to get produced and consumed, sold and resold, or sold and then assembled and then broken and then assembled again, and then a new thing will come up there in that. Now we have advantage of the fact that we've got a demographic dividend. All of you are here. We've got a average age of 28 in India at this point in time. So the next 20 years we have that super advantage continue to be with us. Of course, there is a declining rate of population now for us, so there are some replaceable rate of population has to be looked at, but not going to those parts of it. I think the important thing would be that there is everything gets handled well in that part, right? So you as a producer are just bothered about your item and making that available. Somebody will come and collect it, put a sticker also, whatever they're in that, barcoding, everything. So a lot of things are being done. And if I just extend that example further, some of these also offer that you can just ship it to them also, right? They will do everything else, right? And you will just get the money out of it. Of course, margins and all will change basis what all you get them to do and what you do. But this is possible today with digitalization there in that, right? Now, could we have done this earlier? Maybe. Could we have done better? Maybe. Could we do it much better? Of course. On it, and lots may change, lots will happening as well there. But all of this required a digital backbone to come in as well. Look at the data center capacity in India, right? We just crossed 1 gigawatt data center capacity there in that, right? So there is a significant development that is happening all across to make some of this possible. It was not, let's say, physically possible earlier, but now things are happening around it there. And interconnectedness of things, right? Today, and we were just having a chat before this conversation. Just put the point, like Google, we were talking about, that how the Google Maps today have just made us so dependent on them every time. But at the same time, Swiggy, Blinkit kind of a thing has just made you aware that you can track the delivery guy as well, right? So earlier you were not bothered, you were not aware only. The guy may come 15 minutes later, 30 minutes later, you were all right there. Now you are sticky about it, 8 minutes, 8 minutes, and you start tracking the person as well, right? So that is how now you want to track your shipments also, right? In the larger company scenario also, they want to track from point A to point B to point C to point D to point Z. Let's say if they are that many number of points they have, they want to exactly know where is my truck today, right? Is it getting stuck at some toll point? Is it getting stuck somewhere else? And that is how both the government is collecting the data so that they can do improvements. Corporations are collecting the data so that they can improve on various things around it. And digitalization is basically helping us with that utmost amount of transparency. And that is where you find more and more efficiency coming in as well, right? So, and as consultants, that exactly is something we do and propose and suggest and change and make those improvements happen, because customers are looking for lower prices, and they will only come when we remove the inefficiencies, in a thing like that.
Sir, in the recent global disruption, how has the conversation with clients changed? Are you seeing a definite shift from prioritizing just-in-time cost efficiency to build just-in-case resilience?
So that is, I think, a kind of a very important perspective, which was so just in time. Just as a quick history perspective, just in time was launched by Toyota very long back for their plants in that. But and it was kind of copied. And I'm just limiting myself to the auto industry. When I'm talking about this, is just an example only there in that. So Toyota, when it did it, they want to be efficient. So they basically said, that we don't want the inventory lying in our warehouse or on the shop floor. We will procure items when we just need it, right? So they created a mechanism where it's like an assembly kind of an operation. When things are being rolled out, if they need tires, that many number of tires are arriving at their plant, and they've got a very minimal or zero inventory effectively available, for that particular item. Alongside that, they had a term which was resilience. So they were saying that we want to be just in time but resilient on that, right? Which is why, when we had this, if I remember the year right, it was 2010, I think there, when we had the Fukushima disaster, where this nuclear plant disruption, tsunami and everything happened, right? And in that area is what, they used to produce the semiconductors, for the auto requirements around it. And Toyota has this philosophy that some of the parts which are bottlenecks or require a long lead time, they had procured and kept them always in quantities for serving 3 months, 6 month kind of requirements in that part there, right? So they were perhaps one of the only manufacturers who basically were able to survive that entire duration, where everyone, let's say, was finding challenges in terms of saying how do we mitigate that and do that things around it. What has happened is that some of the other companies took that example of just in time, but really beated it down from an efficiency perspective in that side there, right? And which is why when the pandemic happened, which is not too far back, but it looks and great that looks that old now, but 5 years back when the pandemic happened on it, and the demand shifted right from the auto and various kind of semiconductor requirements to more computer requirements, right? So you had tablets, PCs, everything was getting sold tremendously, and the suppliers moved from making for auto industry to the other electronic peripherals requirement. But that's basically we were all home and everybody was just buying to make themselves more possible to work kind of situation. Now this basically and there was no demand really coming in from auto because cars were not moving only in that sense around it. So it's a real thing which happened that when the demand shifted, the suppliers started to change their approach towards making it, and when the demand returned, because at that point in time there was some thought process that we will not need that many cars and whatever demand will not be there, but people came back with a kind of a, you can say what we called revenge tourism, revenge shopping kind of a situation there as well. So people were traveling also extensively and people were buying extensively as well, which meant that you needed a lot more transportation to happen. So which again, car industry was into a big logjam situation. Many of the car manufacturers, even the global manufacturers, were in a big situation because they didn't have enough semiconductors stored for them and they didn't have orders given as well. And when they were trying to give the orders, the capacity for the semiconductor manufacturing was fairly limited and already getting absorbed, in the production of the previously committed requirements from electronics and various other requirements in that part, right? So when you look at the just in case, instead of saying just in time, just in case is not like a standalone concept. So now today, if you look at it, I mean Tata or Mahindra, other people, they are practically and actively following a just in case model as well, and it's not that limited to them. There are so many other industries and so many other requirements to say that if a situation arises, are we getting limitation done because of a supplier failure? Are we getting limitation done because of a capacity constraint? Is the limitation coming in because of a weather disruption? Is the limitation coming up because of a port congestion, right? So this is the kind of awareness or simulations or scenarios is what a supply chain head or a manager or along with his leadership team has to focus on, create as well. And then that is where they decide that which are these items, which may be very, very expensive or maybe very, very low cost, but if they are not available, we just can't, produce, a finished thing around it. You take an example of, and it may not be like a real example in that, but I'm just taking a hypothetical to say that, if you were manufacturing a car and let's say, one electric component, let's say a headlight, something is not available, right? Now you can't ship out the car without it, right? So it may be that it's not that big as a full car, right? But you cannot ship the car complete, if that is not available. So the challenge which has happened, when we started the discussion, I was talking about the global value chain. That as you integrate with global value chain, every product that we have, let's say an iPhone or a tablet or whatever, or even a car in that sense, there is so much of crisscross happening. So if you require it in US, it is getting sourced from, let's say, 70 countries, and in that 70 countries also the components are going back and forth, sometimes multiple times, getting finally assembled together either in a China factory or an India or a Vietnam or a Bangladesh or whichever, Mexico around it. So there are 70, 80 countries involved for producing one. Even let's say example, if you take like a pair of shoes as well, right? The US as a consumer or Europe as a consumer, I mean they've got so much varied supply chain that for even like a shoe manufacturing, you can have a similar example that they are sourcing it at least from 8 or 10 countries, different parts, and then it's getting assembled in a very different third-party location, right? So if you have a situation like that, it will become a very challenging thing to look at it there. So that's why the digitization also, and that is where the understanding of saying that what are the items which I should be doing just in case, right? So just in case could be about that you want to store it with yourself in excess quantity. So you require it, let's say just in time will tell you just a day's inventory or 5 days inventory. Just in case would say that you need to keep for this item 6 months, or 3 months or 2 months around it. There is a cost, for that. Just in case would also mean that you are trying to near shore. You are saying that 100% of thing which I am buying from outside today, but I want to near shore or have it on shore as well, right? Which means next to my factory city and whatever there, or near shore means could be another close country as well, that you want to create some capacity over there which you can use if there's a requirement comes up, right? To say that at least I'm able to survive and run that business, and you can expand that capacity if a need arises as well, right? So contingency planning has become much more bigger as an agenda and everything there. So, and this is linked to risk management in a very big way, because earlier the discussions were not like that. Today the discussion is about supply chain continuity, business continuity, about having that resilience in the supply chain. That's become very normal perspective. It's not something which is, let's say, getting ignored as it was earlier for us.
So as we all know that you worked over KPMG over 20 years, and KPMG known is for innovation. So what's the transformation as you see in your line of work that KPMG has done?
KPMG is done.
Yeah.
So I think many things, because you, as a consultant or a consulting firm, let me give you 2-3 specific ones on that. So we started as an audit firm, then we branched into tax. So saying that our clients said that you do great audit, can you also provide some tax support, because that's something which is very logical to do. We started doing that. Then the client said that audit you've got the understanding of the business and you are giving suggestions for improvement, changes, whatever, or you're finding problems, can you solve them as well, right? So advisory started to mushroom in some sense around it. And this I'm not talking about like the 20-year span, but KPMG is more than 250-year-old organization. So over a period of time, not us only, other firms as well, have grown in that particular way that we are all client-centric. So whatever client wants, if it is a service domain and if it is in a professional domain, we may want to see that can we do this as well, right? Doesn't mean that we will do everything, but there is a change that starts to happen, and it's also because of our people. Our people also, they want to not just question but be part of solution as well, right? So the it's like an enrichment that happens over a period of time. So audit, then tax and advisory became a very normal thing for us. I can say that that like it is in India side of it. I mean, we are predominantly on the advisory side, right? Audit is, we are doing more than a fair share of our listed company clients today in India, but the from an audit perspective, and we've got a sizable tax presence, but our growth engine is advisory, right? Now advisory is also a very big term in that sense around it. So advisory also got broken down to say risk advisory, management advisory, deal advisory, and then again looked at capital projects advisory, then looked at say outsourcing advisory. There are plethora of advisories which are coming in there in that sense. Then they become sector focus as well, right? So we were not sector focused earlier, but as it happens around it, clients are looking for sharper responses, quicker understanding. They're not wanting people to come and learn, right? Which is where the sector focus came up, as well on that in a big way. Earlier, when we started off, KPMG started in 1993. So as you can imagine, first 5-10 years, you don't have very large clients, or you've got only overseas clients. We started focusing on a lot of India big clients earlier. Now we focus on mid markets also, as we call it, which means that clients which are in the region of 1,000, 3,000 crores as well, and sometimes 500 crores as well. So there is a broad range of clients we started to serve in that sense around it. Technology has been a very big, you would say, differentiator, as well as a need of time, as well as to improve our service delivery, remove our inefficiency, create more transparency within the organization as well. So technology also became a very big thing for us. So which means that we have moved to a ERP, we have moved to a a Salesforce, we have also invested in an HR software, many things that we've done so that our people can get served better, and also our clients can see us and do that part. Then we need a lot of collaboration tools as well, right? So we also use Microsoft Office, we use MS Teams as well, so there's a lot of collaboration tools requirements happened as well in that part. Today, I mean, like, we do a lot of work on AI and this generative chat as well, so there is a work that we're doing in that area as well, both for clients and also internal around it there, right? So if you see our service portfolio, right, has changed, or our people that we have in our teams also has changed. We used to have predominantly chartered accountants or articles around it. Then we've influxed it with MBAs, there. Now, we've got a very different mix of people, who are coming from a lot from technology backgrounds around it, right there. So that kind of a change of mix and profile has happened over a period of time, and that has essentially helped, the company to, or the firm to basically be of much more value to the clients. Also be very attractive for, let's say people who want to join consulting. Also be, let's say that engine or a magnet who can keep that talent together as well. So, and also if I may say that, I just spoke about a few things, but just like people initiatives also, right? What we've done for people and change, a culture perspective within the organization also has changed or progressed over a period of time, right? I mean, 3 weeks back, we celebrated I think the 3rd or 4th well-being week, as we call it there, which meant that, we were getting psychologists to speak to our people. We were getting medical practitioners to come and speak to our people. We are getting, people who've had, very celebrated careers, but they have moved into mentoring, coaching, coming and talking to our people, right? So it's a full week where the focus is entirely on the softer parts of the requirements and everything. And let's say, like for, certain women health issues as well, something which was not necessarily discussed, spoken about. We had actually medical practitioners coming in, addressing and inviting even the family members to come and speak, or come and share or discuss, or, creating helplines, for individual consultations as well, for people around it. So, these are things that I would say that, 10, 12 years back, you would find that in like an overseas office trying to talk about it, or a overseas consulting office could not be capable to any other perspective as well. But these are now very standard practices, getting done somewhere, some that, we are promoting and supporting, and also others are doing as well there in that, right? So I think there is a lot more focus which would come, on individuals, and also people looking at people long term, if I may say that. It's not that we were not looking at them earlier as well, but now there's a much more part of, saying that not only your work, your other challenges or difficulties, we would like to support you on that. So that's kind of changed over a period of 20 years, if I may say.
Sir, for tomorrow's MBA student, what skills do you think would matter more than technical knowledge in the future landscape?
So, the tough one, but things keep changing around it. But I think so. My quick take would be that fundamentals will not change, right? I think the ability to be very focused in terms of outcomes, right, is something which is gonna be always the critical part of it. Technology could be an enabler, right? But I think your attitude, ownership, right, is something which driving the ownership mindset to get outcomes. I think that will remain same, whichever way, whichever era that we get to. So, and I spoke about it a little earlier also, I think the ownership mindset is a very critical part. The second is that urgency or the drive to get somewhere, right? And that somewhere being clear as well, in some sense around it, to say that, or getting clarity on it in that, first 90 days, 1 year, perspective on that, and can change. It's a evolving field on it, but having a mix of, and I'll just share on this, something which I practice a lot, saying that I have a mindset of, medium term, right? So a lot of things I'm looking at a medium term mindset, there, right? When I say medium term, so I'm saying short term, if some issues happen, short term somebody has been upset about something, short term, let's say I'm not getting success, doesn't bother me that much, there, momentarily, if it's like an hour, 2 hour, a day, it's fine, but I try and get over it very quickly, there, because, and people when I'm interacting, discussing, clients as well, always looked at medium term, right? Why? Because in the short term, you may get upset with various things on it, and it may just create challenges and difficulties on that, and in the noise, you may just make an incorrect decision as well. When you look at medium term, you will realize a lot of us are very good people, right? A lot of us would be able to, even your client, or there could be some issue that may happen, the client's upset with you, or something has happened, or you're upset with somebody, a team member, even relationships for that matter as well. If you have a medium term mindset, you can get over a lot of the things on. See, long term, when I say long term, I don't, while I practice medium to long in that sense around it, but long term, I don't have that focus, because I say, the long term loses the energy and confidence and comfort. Because if it's too long term, right, I mean, one is not able to sustain and get there as well, right? And sometimes it may just lose that entire plot as well. So that medium term mindset, I think, is a very critical part. So if you and you can link it to the earlier thing which I was saying also, so if you are looking a career build up or an entrepreneurial journey, right, I think it's exactly the similar perspective on that, to say have a 3-year mindset, right, of making that a great success, in that sense around it, or giving your best on it. If it doesn't succeed, still you are comfortable that, I did what I could. If it's like a 6 months, 1 year perspective in that, at times you may, it may be that people are super successful in a very quick time also with great ideas and great execution around it. But I would generally feel that for a majority of us, a kind of a 2-year, 3-year mindset, work better. And the other thing which I will suggest is that, or share, is the point of, saying that decide that 3-year journey. If you are doing something in 3 years, and they say, why cannot it be done in 18 months, right? Kind of a thing there. So just halve it. Whatever you have planned for, just 50% it there, right? Whether it's your own career aspiration, whether it is client work, whether it is anything for that matter, on it. Because what happens is that, again, 3 year becomes slightly longer. When you have that, you get that comfort zone. You may not start that soon, and whatever there is that, But if you halve that thing, that urgency comes in there, So, and majority of the times you will finish that thing in 2.5 years, getting there, versus whatever there is that. Like I was giving you example of, my move to Hyderabad. My partner said 2 years, do this around it. I said nothing more than 1 year. He didn't believe me that will happen in 1 year, but I was convinced that it has to happen in 1 year. I have to come back to Delhi, back to my family. My family had not moved that time, so I said, I have to come back and make it happen in 1 year. So despite of the 3 month, let's say I lost in Telangana issue and everything, we still managed to do it, right? So it took 1 year, 3 months effectively, but it was 1 year, from, let's say, the disruption ke baad ka, so, eventually we succeed. So somewhere creating that urgency is also very critical, there. Then I think just a very quick last is another thing, focus on your health is a extremely non-negotiable factor. Many of us have neglected and, are suffering or continue to suffer, from various things around it. I think, if you are a professional, I think taking care of your health is an extremely important part because you are there for yourself and you will make that change possible. If you are healthy, then a lot of things will be possible. If you're not, then there are some things will get constrained, at least over a period of time, there in that. So
It was really inspiring, sir, collecting all that knowledge from you. Now we are up for questions. If anything.
Over there.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Lavanya Singh and I'm from the PGDM General Batch. My question for you is, with the growing automation and digitization, what is the scope and evolution of job opportunities in supply chain, specifically in the Indian context?
Sure. Thank you, Lavanya, for that question. And I think some of this is absolutely getting spoken about or challenging our minds as well around it. But I think clearly the automation, when you see, is an enabler, right? So when we had the invention of typewriters, there was a thing that people would not need to write at all. That did happen as well, but it was typewriters just improved the efficiency, and of course it was invented much before I was born as well. So I'm not trying to link it like that, but computers usage, right? Again, was a lot of challenge that had happened, because when you move from manual to computerization, there was a lot of resistance and jobs were lost as well, of course, around it. But reskilling happened around it there. I think today, of course, we are dealing with a very different perspective with artificial intelligence, as it gets spoken about, whether it's purely machine learning and, data analysis and everything that gets happened around it in a quicker manner. So I think, and we spoke about digitalization a lot, which is happening in the supply chain. So several of the routine jobs or the jobs which are given as normal, like somebody was reviewing, somebody was monitoring, somebody was reconciling, those jobs will certainly go away, because when you have an integrated system, there is no reconciliation required. It's happening, everybody is verified it digitally only around it. So there's no need for any reconciliation on that. But what is happening is that there will be need in the India context, what we might call as a digital logistics manager, right? Kind of a situation, wherein logistics is getting operated through a digital twin or a control tower, right? Wherein one is able to see the entire supply chain, on a screen itself there. And you can do a lot of simulations to say, like, that if this thing stops, how can you reroute on that, right? And to give you an example, like, Singapore port, right, uses a digital control tower solution right there, so, and they simulated a typhoon situation, right, to say if a typhoon comes on it and there's a very port which is very occupied majority times, right? So they did this simulation with a crane stoppage, with a typhoon, with a, let's say, vessel congestion, right? They did various things around it. So they found that, typically a human person would have taken that many times to kind of, let's say, come to the answer. So you would require, let's say, just for example's sake only, let's say you require 15 people to do it. Now there are 2 people, let's say, who are doing that simulation and getting that answer in minutes. And then saying, okay, you can reroute ships like this, you can do this kind of a thing around it, and actually you can avoid the stoppage, and you were actually able to save, in that particular case, about $2 million, right? Kind of a thing there. Now, the thing is that when this thing happens, of course, the jobs of some of the people would go away, but there are newer jobs that will emerge, out of it. Like all of us, would not have imagined, a few years back, to say that you have this influencer job coming in there, right? And now there's a full requirement of, in that particular way, and people are following, as well as there is huge money being made in that sense right now. likewise, you didn't require people to write algorithms. Data scientists were not required in that sense. But today the thing has changed. You require algorithms to be done. You were data scientists are required in that part. Economists are being used as well. Behavioral psychologists are getting used, right, for consumer perspective in that sense around it. So there is what is required is updating yourself in terms of what changes are happening, because the curriculum itself would not satisfy the needs of the changing or evolving dynamics around it. So interactions with some of the industry people, reading there and that, watching some good stuff on it, and then also having that clear mindset which is open to learning, right, and relearning will have to be there in that.
Thank you so much for the insights, sir.
Most welcome.
One last question, please.
Good afternoon, sir. So my name is Suresh Varana. I am pursuing PGD in general. First of all, thank you for the insights on the entire operations and the session, especially the take on thinking about the medium term, which resonates with the Buddhist philosophy of Madhya Marg. Coming to the questions, I have two questions, but maybe for the paucity of time, I'll club it into one. We have seen a growing trend. So we have seen a growing trend, a transformation in the global value chains. Okay, be it due to the economic bottlenecks or some political setbacks. Especially we see some political setbacks in the South Asian countries. In this scenario, how do you see India's leveraging its potential strength in the factor of DPIs, the digital infrastructure that India has created, be it UPI, be it ONDC? How do you see India leveraging it at a global value scale? Secondly, there's a growing trend, probably you might have witnessed in your own industry and in the entire operation industry, that there's a growing trend about portraying India as China plus one strategy, as an alternative to the Chinese model. Have you seen any changes in the present scenario? Have you been encountering any client shift from Chinese to Indian markets? Is India able to leverage on these changes?
Okay, so quite a loaded question, I must say. But in terms of, please have a seat in that. So from two perspectives on it. Quick one would be, so as you have seen as well, that the public infrastructure, from a digital perspective, was done by the government there and that, which has been not the case in several countries around it. India had that, we would say, foresight as well as the will to invest and sustain, because there is a lot of developments also have happened, and all the new developments have that experiment and a failure perspective also to come in there and that. But there is genuine investments that happened, and with a vision and foresight around it. And we saw the Jam Trinity coming together, as well, and also the digital stack of the country, put up together as well. And which you rightly said, they got, and you can see the benefits of that today. I mean, UPI gets used everybody. ONDC is in the stage of usage around it, but it's a great platform which got created in that. Awareness and everything will be required more on that. When the fact that the government is now, like is a Umang platform, where they have kind of joined all the different government services together as well. Some of them were already digitized, but now they're available on a single app, like a super app kind of a thing there, right? So there is a lot that has happened in the last few years, and something which now we are taking for the way like a usual way of working, right? I mean, there's nothing great in some way that you experience. It's like a usual way. UPI ye to hona hi hai, kind of a situation. So, and I can say this with a practical, like a thing that, several of you would experience also, that when you travel overseas, you find it very inconvenient now. You were praising their infrastructure earlier, but now you start, praising your infrastructure and feeling very inconvenient ki ye nahi hota yahan pe, ye bhi nahi hai, this is the kind of airport they have, right? So, and that's the feeling which I get, with whenever I now land back, earlier I used to have very different feeling, but now I have a very proud feeling when I come back. It's a sigh of relief. You come back and you are there with that 10-minute delivery. You got the UPI and you got the best airports and a lot of other things around it there. So, but in terms of you said digital API, everything on it. I think there's a lot being done. And that is why, let's say in certain places where Indians are visiting, at least, let's say France or Singapore or some of the African countries, Middle East countries as well, you started getting the UPI usage happening there. Currently, it's on some are on pilot, some are on the fact that it's getting, let's say, done for the other let's say local population as well. But we are supplying them, the knowledge and everything in that side of it there. You will see that happening for the tax structure as well. And already happening in some parts, but it will happen in much more extensive way because we have the biggest advantage of 1.4 billion people to serve. So we had the most complex problem on earth to solve, right? So, and it has to be the most resilient system as well because we've got very much people who are very big. Let's say you can say innovators and pushers also who will test all the system also for all its inadequacy. I mean, we will want to exploit it. So if the Indian system has been, let's say, implemented for a few years and survived the push and pull of our Indian population, I'm just using the word not in a negative sense, but in a positive sense that it is a well-tested and a great platform, there. And we say that even in consulting that if you've done great work in India, right? Many times we are so successful overseas because we've got a strong work ethic, we've got a great output mindset, we are very value-driven. Right, result आना चाहिए उसमें से value का उसमें आना चाहिए, that not the theoretical kind of a thing there. So which is where the UPI and other people's things are getting adopted. It's a fact that when you do a technology for your country, there are some systems that you are subscribing to, in that. So technology architecture could be different in a different country. So adaptation to that at times, either takes time. Plus, it's like a thing that like we used to carry a third world mindset. West will only provide technology, right? So हमारा खत्म हो गया, काफी हद तक ही खत्म हो गया या बचा नहीं है थोड़ा सा. But other countries where we are trying to sell may or may not have that same mindset, right? So absorption of Indian technology, because 2000 onwards only I can say, when we had the .com bust happened, when Indians really provided that technology change and whatever in that. In our tech industry now, GCC. So all of this is helping us to elevate the Indian brand image as well as acceptability in a big way, right? And but in the West, it does take some time on that. So for us, I think the great markets are these Africa markets, ASEAN markets, Middle East markets, where a lot is happening and things are happening as well there in that. I think I'm sorry, you had the second question. If you can just quickly repeat that, I'll just.
So it was about how India is leveraging the China Plus One strategy.
Sure. So I mean, see, China Plus One was a great call in some way, by different supply chain leaders and everything, and the CEOs around it there. All of that got triggered much more with the pandemic that had happened around it. People realized that some basic things are not getting manufactured in their country. So people started to, let's say, focus on healthcare, focus on defense, on that. Focus on some aspects on saying some critical manufacturing, that should be of materials as well, right? See, the COVID pandemic was entirely about saying that you just didn't knew where your material was coming from, right? So a lot of things was about the fact that there was a complete ignorance, so people then went deep dive to say, I will go to level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. Where is my supplier purchasing from and where is that supplier purchasing from? Because many times people realize that eventually you may be buying from a second one or third one, but he also goes back to China for that, right? So that's where the China Plus One came in. China Plus One, when it has come in, it has started to happen. And in the realignment, what is happening is that you can't do away with China entirely because of the huge capacity that they have and the fact that they produce some of the things that are, I would say, lowest prices, as well. And also supply chains take 15 years, 20 years, 30 years to develop, right? So, because there's a taxation to be looked at, customs to be looked at, port capacity, right, highway capacity, a lot of things have to be looked at, not only the factory around it. So, from a China perspective, it is what it is, and expansions are also happening there. It's not that we got there. But what people took a notice of was to say, new capacity. Can the new capacity come in a location which is not affected by China in that way? Can I look at supplier base as an alternative as well, right? So, new capacity has started to come. Either what I was using the term as regionalization. So it could be that that you had earlier all sourcing happening from there or 90% coming from China. Now you are saying that 20% can I have it near to the consumers right there, which could be a country near to, let's say if USA we are talking about, then Mexico became or Canada became as an important thing as a near shoring or regionalization around it there. the entire region getting served. So Europe is getting served only by a, let's say, a Serbian factory or a, let's say, a factory in Poland. So they could serve the European side of it and not get affected fully, by that. And now the thing that has happened is that these basically advancements, India also has been a beneficiary of that for sure. Samsung, as you see, the world's largest mobile factory is in Noida at this point in time, and it's not only one factory; it is an ecosystem around it. Right, so there are tremendous number of suppliers who've come, as part of that. Foxconn, they became one of the largest now manufacturers of smartphones, for even Apple in that sense around it. Right, so it's basically an ascent. When you move from, let's say, initial component supplier, you move an assembly manufacturer. From assembly, you start making full systems around it, and that you can see from a defense perspective also now. There is a tremendous amount of defense exports. 5 years back, when there was a call that we want to do $5 billion exports in defense, it was like a very, say, laughable matter to some extent on it, because you were not even 1,050 crores is what we were doing that time. Right, to do like 35,000 crores is just like a very different call. But now you see that happening. When you supply a BrahMos, you get that 1,000 plus crores order in a big way, right? Or a 600 crore, 700 crore order there in that. So we have to move from components to assembly to systems, and it takes that much of time. But we are getting there. We need to solve some of our problems on logistics still. We need to solve some of the aspects around file movement, the government file movements around it still. We still need to, let's say, solve some of the labor laws as well, right? So it's not that we are completely aware, but there are companies which have found sweet spots, and they are investing and they're trying to overcome some of the other challenges by doing their own efforts around it.
Thank you, sir. Thanks.
Most welcome, please.
That's amazing, sir, your experience. And thank you because of the time constraint, we have to end the session here.
Thank you so much, sir, for such an engaging and thought-provoking session. It was truly enlightening to hear your insights on how digitization is reshaping India's supply chain and what it means for the future of businesses and professionals like us. Your real-world examples and clarity of thoughts have given us a much deeper understanding of this rapidly evolving landscape.
On behalf of entire corporate interface team and students at Lal Bahadur Shastri Institute of Management, we would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to Mr. Neeraj Bansal for joining us today and sparing time from his busy schedule to enrich this podcast session with his experience.
As a token of our gratitude and respect, I would now like to invite our esteemed faculty member, Dr. Darshana Bankar, to present memento to our distinguished guest.
Thank you.